Hi, my name's Brandon, and today I'm reviewing the books by Mark Lawrence. He has two trilogies so far, and I know he's working on a third with the first book coming out in 2017. So his books they're in the fantasy genre, or if you want to sound less geeky, you can call it the speculative fiction genre. But they also have a decent amount of sci-fi elements to it. But so Mark Lawrence he came into the world as an author is a little different than most people. He was a scientist, and he worked in artificial intelligence systems, and he was in is for fun. He wrote stuff, and I think that he had a writing group that he was part of, and they thought that he should try to get it published. So he got an agent, and they loved it, and they published it. And since then, he's released a book every year for the past 6 years. I mean, he really cranks them out, and they're all very good. He has, a lot of people consider him to be in his books, especially the first trilogy, to be in they're darker. So some people a new genre called grim dark. But I mean, he's focused more on anti-heroes, and that they're not perfect characters, it's not a perfect world. But it's really good. They're really good reads, and it's really interesting what happens. So a little bit more info about Mark. He was working part time as a scientist, and he was working part time as a writer, and he was a full time caretaker for his little daughter, Thalen, who has cerebral palsy, I believe. And recently, he was able to become a full time writer and a full time carer. So Mark's two trilogies, they both take place in the same world, but with completely different characters and a different setting in different countries. So the first trilogy is Broken Empire trilogy, and that follows Jorg or George. It's pronounced it's spelled Jorg, but the author has said that it's meant to be pronounced like George, but he wanted to spell originally with an e at the end, but with the American Latino pronunciation of it, he didn't want it to people to think that it was Jorge, so he took the e off, but it was confused some people. But I'm gonna call him George. I'm gonna call him George. And this second series is the Red Queen's War, and that follows Jalen and his Viking companion Snorri von Snagson, I believe, and they go questing, and it's both really good books. They're both really good series, and it's really interesting how most authors when they create a successful world, they create successful characters and line of books that people like. Usually they keep writing. In that character, they keep on going and going, and so a lot of times they become stagnant. But Mark, he decided to end it in the first trilogy. There's George's character. His arc is done at the end of Emperor Thorns, the third book in the trilogy. And it's such a brave thing to do, and to start out with a completely new character. I mean, people couldn't like him. I wasn't even sure about it. And actually, the first year I pre-ordered the book Prince of Fools, but I didn't actually order it. I didn't actually read it until the second book came out. So I read them both in a row and absolutely loved them. The only problem there, I had to wait for the third book to come out this year. So I'm not gonna go into any spoiler territory with the books. Without, if watching this, maybe you haven't read any of them. But I do, to talk about them, I really have to go into a bit about the world and the world building. And it is a slight spoiler, just because how the books deliver it. They deliver it like a cherished little treasure for you. Every book, you learn a little bit more about the world, but it really it doesn't hurt to know about it, because honestly, all you have to do is look at the map in the first book, and you'll be able to know, what's going on. It'll be spoiled for you. So essentially, this is the world in these books is our world. It's our world in about like a millennia in the future. So it was really interesting idea is that, like, in the people that in the book they call them the builders, like they were doing some sort of science experiment that it resembled, the Large Hadron Collider, and in which they were trying to bridge the gap between mind and matter. And it was successful, and it made that people with enough force of will, could manipulate matter and bring different things into the world. They'd be able to change the real world by using their mind. Like, they could throw a fireball, they could bring back the dead, like they could necromancy, they could they could become gods, they could anything. They could, like, walk into your dreams, they could read your mind, they could do anything they wanted to. The books never say exactly what happened, but we know that there's the time of the 1,000 builder sons, so that something, either related to this or not related to it, but there was a nuclear war, and like it pretty much ended the world for the most part. And also I'm sure there's global warming. So if you look at the maps, it's a map of Europe, but the coastline is very different. So basically, like, I mean, the sea has rose like 100 feet or something like that, and everything is different now. But because all the technology was pretty much lost, even though we might find shards of it, and that they don't have the internet or anything that we have, like the books we had, but they still know, like, the classic philosophers. They still know Shakespeare. Like, one of the first things I knew if someone was wrong was when George was quoting Shakespeare, and he was quoting other philosophers, and you're like, wait, is this our world? The interesting thing is that it appears to be a medieval world, but like, it's because there's still like a version of Christianity here, and it's led by a pope. It's actually a female pope in this, and they are very against technology and anything that would like maybe bring power back, like bringing them back to being the builders or whatever. They would, if a person tried to make something interesting, make an invention, they'd be more likely to just kidnap him, put him in jail, or kill him and destroy, like, the invention or whatever. So that the culture has stagnated, and it's just in this state of, like, medieval times. But the problem is that and since the 1,000 years since, in the future for us, the machine that bridged mind and matter, and really it kind of cracked the world almost. It cracked the reality. So, like, and then the wheel has kept spinning, and now it's getting stronger and stronger. So, like, the magicians and sorceresses and the gods are more powerful. But the closer it gets to our world ending, like the universe just exploding, or like ceasing to be. So it's a really interesting take on it. Like, there's a lot of like there's we don't see too much stuff from our world, but like, except they might be at a tavern and you might hear a glimpse of someone singing a Beatles song or something, or like some classic song, like, and instead of like a tavern, like instead of like a normal like fancy tavern song, and but it's just really kind of cool. But there's stuff like a character might get a gun, but it's more thing like there's futuristic things too. Like, they'll meet artificial intelligence, or they'll meet like there are like these robots, androids, but like they call them something different. But and there'll be like, he'll want a character to find like a ring it's really just like a version of Google Earth but on steroids. And there's so many interesting things that it does with it that I absolutely love the world and what he created. So to set up to to talk about like what the stories are, like how they're set up. Again, I won't spoil anything. I'll try not to spoil anything, but like I'll tell what they're about. So in his first series, in the first book, Prince of Thorns, he George is in his past he's a prince and of one of the it's called the Broken Empire, and there are a bunch of little kingdoms that there's no emperor, but there's a bunch of kingdoms, and like they all have to agree for there to be a new emperor. So there hasn't been one for a couple hundred years, I think. So George is a prince. At one point, his mother and his little brother are off there with a group of guards, and they're going to some other city, and they're ambushed by a group of men, and they turn out to be George's uncle's army. So his mother, when they see that and they're coming, she throws George into a hookbriar patch. So it's like he is just stuck in it and he can't get out. And anytime he tries to move and try to help his brother and sister, brother and mother, the thorns just dig in deeper, and he has to watch as his little brother is killed and his mother is raped and killed, and he almost bleeds to death by the time that his father's soldiers come and find him and they save him. So George, he expects his dad to declare war and and get revenge for his mother's death, but instead he makes a deal with the other king, his brother, and that is some sort of recompense, like he give him money or there's some sort of deal instead of going to war. And he is so frustrated by that so a little bit later he breaks into his father's dungeon, and he breaks out a bunch of men that were set to be hanged. So they're the worst of the worst. He becomes their leader, and it's like this band of brothers, and they've like that's why in the story there's like that's like the side characters in the book, and there's a lot of interesting ones. And there's also a side character of a knight that was sent to bring George back, but instead he stays with him, like as his right hand man. So at the beginning of the book, George and his group of brothers, a band of brothers, are out, pillaging the land. That they're killing people, setting towns on fire, robbing them. And that's your very first look into George, and it's caused some controversy for the author and for the book, because right off the bat you get that, and there's like they don't show any rape or anything, but they kind of just mention it like casually, like they just kind of throw it out there, and I know some people were really turned off by that and really found that bad. Didn't really like that, and it's I think that it was designed just to really show what kind of character he is. Like, he's not a good guy. George is not a good guy, even though he's like 14 at the time. So he's not like he's leading this group of men, and they do bad things. But the author has said that he based the character off of Alex, I think Delange, from The Clockwork Orange, and so that he's not meant to be a hero. He's not meant to be really an anti-hero. He's a villain that you can sympathize with. So and what happens? He goes back home and tries to claim his being the heir to his kingdom, but his dad's gotten remarried and there's a new baby on the way. So, but it sends him on a mission that to become the king so if he wants to be a king, you go be a king or something. So he goes and he wants to take over one of the kingdoms, or destroy this one kingdom. and then that is the beginning of the adventure, and there's a lot of interesting stuff there, and a lot of cool things happen. And the second book is King of Thorns, and that's probably my favorite of all of his books. Like it's such a usually the second book isn't that good in the trilogy, but I just loved it. Like it's really set up that the King of Thorns book is almost more of a coming of age story, and as you see George, you growing up, he becomes more of an anti-hero. Like, I mean, he's still not quite there, but he's becoming, he's a better character. Like, he's not, you don't hate him as much, even though he'll go around killing people, like, not even think about it. And it also has an incredibly interesting structure to the book. I mean, the timeline kind of goes back and forth, where you see a timeline where in the present time is him trying to defend his newly won kingdom, and then the previous one is like what happened, what happened like beforehand, and when he went on another adventure, and when he was trying to prepare for the battle, and it's like what led to the battle. Like it kind of goes back and forth, and it to me they're really interesting stuff because he did something horrible, and he locked the memory away in a box because it's so horrible that he couldn't live with it. So he locked the memory away. So you go through this and you see like these blocks in his memory, and like you don't know what he did. Like you think, oh, what'd he do? You don't know. So it's really well done. I absolutely love that book. And then the third book, it's you can tell by looking at the names of the books. Like it's a little bit of a spoiler, but he is going another adventure and he has to save the world essentially. But he's gonna do it his own way. He's not gonna, he's gonna do it by killing everyone else. He's gonna save the world, and die trying or kill everyone trying. And it's really one of the top trilogies I've read. Like they're very well done. I absolutely love them. So at the end of the trilogy, his story is done, and then you think another author would have made another book with him or something, but not Mark Lawrence. Instead, he created a whole new set of characters, and that's in Prince of Fools. And honestly, especially if you don't like really dark fantasy, if you don't like violence, and a lot of characters that you can't root for, characters that like almost you kind of hate a little, like Prince of Fools might be a better start, like a better first book to read. It might be the better introduction to Mark Lawrence and his world, because they start about the same time. Like he's a little older, like he's in his 20s, but it starts around the same time I think as Prince of Thorns, and their characters meet each other twice, so it's kind of really interesting. But basically, Jalen is he's a prince, and he's like almost like a cracked mirror image of George, because he's a prince, but his mother was killed in front of him along with his unborn sister, and his dad, he kind of hates his dad, although Jalen's dad is nowhere near as bad as George's dad. And it's really interesting how like there are a lot of similarities, but there are absolutely completely different characters. So at the beginning of the book, Jalen is he's kind of a vagabond. Like he's the youngest prince of the youngest prince. So his grandmother is still on the throne. She's called the Red Queen. So he's so far out of the line of succession that he can kind of do what he wants, and he takes advantage of that. Like he's spent some time in the military for his queen's army, and he's actually returned home a hero, but he doesn't really have any memory of it because he's a berserker. But he kind of views himself that he thinks that he ran away. So he's kind of a coward, but he's a gambler, he's a womanizer, he tries to sleep with every woman at court, and at the beginning of the book he is on a run of bad luck with gambling. So he owes a lot of money to the wrong kind of people. So and in the beginning he goes into his mother's court, and there's his grandmother's court, and they bring in this Viking who tells a story about how his village was killed by this another Viking army that were working for the dead king. So and the Red Queen wants to know all that she can about the dead king's movements and what they're doing, and and in return for telling a story, she sets him free. But Jalen sees him and thinks that he could use him to turn around his luck and take him to the fighter pits and bet on him and win his money back. So he does that. He takes him to the fighting pits, and things go bad. Like, there's a lot of series events, but things go bad. But in the end, like, basically the setup for their adventure is that Jalen and the Viking Snorri von Snagson, they are caught in a spell, and like his grandmother, the Red Queen, she has this person called the Silent Sister, that a sorceress that works behind the scenes that only Jalen can see. She sets a trap for one of the dead king's captains that is in their city, trying spying on something, and Jalen and Snorri are in the building that she set the trap in, and they escape. They escape from the trap, and this kind of breaks the trap, so the dead captain is able to get free too. But all the magic that the Silent Sister put into the trap goes into Jalen and Snorri, and it like entwines them together, and links them with the spirits, like a god of dark and a god of light. Like one's like the Jalen is linked to an angel, and Snorri is linked to a Norse demon, like a spider demoness, spider lady. Like, I don't know, I forget their names, but and they're bound together, so they can't like separate from each other, or like things go weird, and they can feel something pulling them north. So basically, it's where the dead captain's going. Something the spell still wants them to destroy this. The spell still wants to destroy the dead captain, so they can feel it pulling them north. So they want to go. They have to go north and break the curse, break the spell, and that is the beginning of the adventure. And it's a really fun time. It's a really fun adventure. There's a lot of like character growth, especially with Jalen. Like Snorri, it doesn't grow too much as a character, but Jalen is really your viewpoint character. It really grows and really is. It's still the same person, but like I love his path. And basically that they're not just gonna break the spell, but they want to try to get revenge for Snorri against the guy that killed his family. So, and then in the second book, it's following that they attained a key that will open any door, and it's Loki's key, or the Liar's Key is what the book is called. And Snorri wants to use this key to open up the door into death, into hell, and bring back his family. And that's the whole adventure going into that. They meet new characters, they go on different adventures to get there, and they have to fight a lot of these things that the dead king are sending to try to kill them and take the key away from them. It's a lot of fun. And in the third book, the Wheel of Ocean is the wheel that that started that was able to bridge mind and matter and make magic real, and make heaven and hell real, but not like whatever may actually exist. It created some artificial thing where the minds of the masses can influence the world and actually create things. But it's spinning out of control, and they need to stop it. And that's really a setup for the book. And that's it. And so it's an excellent series of books, and he's working on a new one, and this one is in a separate world and a female character coming out in 2017, and I really look forward to whatever he puts out next. Okay, thanks for watching.